Welcome to the latest edition of the Mom's Playbook podcast. My name is Heather James, and as always, I'm joined by my pod partner, Jasmine Zor. In each episode, created by sports moms for sports moms, we dive into the intricacies of raising a student athlete, from managing practice schedules and travel arrangements to insider tips on recruiting, all while balancing our careers. We know each sport has its unique challenges, and we aim to explore and understand them all. Along the way, we share stories, enjoy some laughter, because, as moms, we understand the chaos, but wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Let's jump in.
Today, we're joined by Sheree Ellison, a mentor to young women in business who enjoys volunteering to local communities in the Washington, D.C. area. She's a mom of three, and her son is running back Justice Ellison, who played for Wake Forest and later transferred to Indiana. We're excited to talk to you today, Sheree. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you too as well.
Perfect. So tell us just a little about Justice when he started playing football. Did he play other sports? Kind of when he decided to concentrate on football. Anything you want to tell us? And then also maybe a little about yourself and your husband. Did you play sports?
Gotcha. Okay. So Justice started sports very, very young. I want to say 3 years old, the kids in the basement. He started with basketball and loved it. It was his first love. And he did that for a number of years. Sort of in the midst of some of the basketball years, he did football at the age of 7. He did football again at the age of 12, but mostly he played basketball and he was on travel teams. He played for his middle school. He played for his high school. So we thought, honestly, we thought his career, if you will, would be in basketball. And then one day, when he was entering high school, his dad called me and said, "Hey, we're at football practice." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Football practice? What are you doing at football practice?" And I was excited, but also very nervous about that because he was one of those kids that hadn't played. A lot of kids he ended up like sort of playing with at the college level had played football from youth all the way up through high school. And so I was kind of nervous about him taking that on, sort of full time after playing basketball for so many years. But he loved it. And that was sort of his journey in high school, junior high to high school. Basketball was mostly what he did. And then he jumped into football, and he just absolutely loved it. And we were at Flint Hill High School. So we loved it as well.
And now you have three children. So is he the oldest, the youngest?
He is the middle child. I have an older daughter. Yeah, I have an older daughter, Jasmine. She actually played volleyball from the age of 12 all the way through college. She went to American University in DC. And then I'm now a grandmother. So she's now 27. Thank you. And Justice is the middle child. And then I have a younger son. We have a younger son, Javon, who is 18 and actually on his way to college. Actually, he's going to be in Indiana with Justice, and he's going to be attending in like an art school, right? So they're going to be together for the next year or two. Yeah. But
That's
getting
incredible.
ready to be getting ready to be an empty nester. I'm excited about that. A little bit about me. I mean, I didn't play sports. My husband Shelly did play sports, and he played football pretty much all his life, and a little bit of baseball as well. So we met at Virginia Tech. He was a football player at Virginia Tech, and so that's kind of how like our story started, was with the two of us at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg.
Blacksburg is low-key beautiful.
Yes, it is
It
gorgeous.
is.
And I'll be honest, I did not like it in 1992 when I went to Blacksburg for the first time. I thought, there's no radio. Nowadays, kids have so much access to music and stuff, right? I was just telling some friends yesterday that I remember the days of going to the record store on Tuesdays to get CDs. Do you guys remember that? New music release day on Tuesdays,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We used to have to go to the record exchange in Blacksburg to get music because there was nothing down there. Hey, it's a part of what built your character and everything
Right.
as a college student. So yeah, I love Blacksburg after the first year. First year I was like, oh, I'm so miserable, but it's a great school.
It is beautiful. I enjoyed every time we went up there for a game. So I found something new to look at and shock me that I didn't
Yeah,
realize that it was so beautiful.
yeah,
That's the cool part about college athletics when you get to travel around to different places is
absolutely.
some of them really shock you as to how pretty they are. Sorry, that was completely off topic. I apologize.
We can get into that because I have some stories about stadiums that I've been to for the college years, and I've just been, somewhat shocked, somewhat disappointed in some cases. So yeah.
Yep. Yep. I have a bucket list of stadiums that I want to go to. when my son was coaching in the SEC, I was getting to some of the SEC schools because he was ACC. We didn't get to go. I didn't get to all of them, of course. I didn't get to all of the ACC schools either. I never got to Syracuse, Boston College, or what
Wait,
was the other one? Wake. We never officially, I mean, we went
Really?
to Wake.
Okay.
We never went to a game at Wake. He
That's
went up
right,
there
because
for
he was
camp.
Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. And you never went to Miami. I was
Yeah.
looking forward to Miami. So yeah.
Because the one year we were supposed to play at Wake was COVID year, and we got COVID the week prior, and so the Wake game got canceled.
I remember those. Do you remember that? I remember there was Duke, there was Florida State, and Miami, I think. 2020, those three teams we didn't get to play because of COVID when we were at
Yep.
Wake Forest.
And we were so excited. I mean, we were gonna have Friendsgiving, like we had it all planned out because it was Thanksgiving weekend, and it was so disappointing not to get up there
Yeah.
for a game because I went up there for just a camp with my son, and I loved it. I loved Wake. I was
Yeah.
very jealous when it wasn't an opening for my son's year, but when Jacob committed, I was like, oh man, that place was
Yeah.
cool too. Such a cool
Yeah.
stadium.
Absolutely. I loved Wake. Loved Wake, their stadium and everything. So
Yeah.
so a little about the college recruitment process for Justice. How did you gain visibility to the colleges, camps? What did you do? What was your process?
gosh, it was, it was extensive. Outside of, there were some college coaches who would come to Flint Hill to see other kids, and then they'd see Justice. They're like, "Whoa, who's this kid?" Right? So we had some of that. We went to he did a lot of camp. Went to see Duke. I think he went to Rutgers. Gosh, what other schools did he attend? So he went to some camps. He also did what was called, oh gosh, it's a Nike camp. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like where they grade you in your speed, your agility, and all these other things. So we did a lot of the Nike camps as well. And so they rate you and they stick you in, sort of a running, and then your name kind of gets out there that way.
Like a Nike Elite camp.
Nike Elite, that's it. That's exactly it. So I have pictures of Justice of from there, and like we still have the T-shirts and the number he had, and there were like tons of college coaches there. In some cases, not some of the smaller camps, not so much, but the larger camps, they would come and see him. Actually, I think he attended one Nike camp at UNC Charlotte and the Wake Forest. I believe it was the lineman coach, and I can't remember the other two, but they came to actually like record him do his 40-yard dash. So that was pretty exciting as well. He did really well at the camp. And at this time, I don't think everyone knows this. Justice was not a running back in high school. He was a slot receiver. So
Really?
what was difficult for him was that he wasn't getting as many like looks at the higher schools, Power Fives at the time, because he was a 5'9" or 10, 195 pound slot receiver. And so a lot of schools weren't interested in him because of his size. And a lot of them were like, you should be a running back, right? But he mostly played slot in high school. So the recruiting process was pretty intense, a lot of disappointing, years, right? And some good ones too, because as parents, you get so ingrained with everything that they're doing and the invites and oh, we like your son and, blah, 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 blah. But then it's like no one ever pulled the trigger, right? So we did a lot of years of just getting out there, getting seen and so on and so forth. So funny enough, Coach Higgins with Wake Forest was the receiver coach at the time. He came to Flint Hill to see Trey, who played at Wake Forest the year before Justice. And that's when they kind of Wake Forest started recruiting Justice in that regard. But he ended up turning into a running back when he went to Wake Forest. So I would say the recruiting process it's a lot and you got to be 100% dedicated. I remember, doing research on coaches, doing research on schools. We would do research on their current running backs and what type of player they like and, that sort of thing. Kind of did the same thing with my daughter with volleyball as well. So you have to really be 100%. If your son or daughter says, hey, this is what I want to do, you got to be all in. And like, when I tell you that I had a spreadsheet of like schools and, what they looked for, like I remember looking at for volleyball, like in order to go to USC, you've got to be 6'2" and weigh 100 and such pounds and, have a vertical of this. And so I had a whole record of like those types of statistics for both my daughter for volleyball and Justice for football, just so we could, stay alert of like what's going on and what these coaches look for.
That's exactly what I did. That's awesome to hear somebody else did that. We
Oh
did,
yeah.
we broke it down not only size,
Mm-hmm.
especially for a snapper, because they can be different sizes, right? And it goes that way
Mm-hmm.
for every position. I'm sure there is an ideal running back size. There's an ideal slot receiver size.
Right.
Punters are giant now in NCAA.
Yeah.
They're just huge human beings, which blows my mind. But we broke it down also into year. So if we knew that they signed a kid the year before to a full scholarship, then that school immediately got crossed off our list because we knew there was not going to be a
Right.
scholarship available. Most schools only have one. Little
That's
different in
right.
a running back room, multiple scholarships in a
Right.
running back room, but we did the same thing. I had a spreadsheet, I had a notebook. Yeah, I did. How about you, Jasmine?
Yeah, we did the same. You don't want to waste your time and your money because it costs much
That's
to go
right.
to these schools. So we kind of picked which ones. I mean, he looked at the education part of it, the academics, everything. Would he want to live in that town? All those things he kind of vetted that before we even put the money into going to look at them.
Yeah. And I think that from my experience with my daughter with volleyball, her at the time, I think she was 15 or 16, her club coach said to me, he said, look, if Jasmine wants to go to USC, she's got to be, this height, right? Or she can play back row and she can only do this. And at the time, I was a little bit bitter, like, well, how can a coach tell me what my daughter can do? As a parent, you have to really listen to some of these coaches. Are there some that might be misleading? Yes. But a lot of them do know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about, and they're giving you the guidance to help you understand that you're just because you think your kid's good doesn't mean that he or she is going to be able to be a starting quarterback or starting running back or starting right side hitter, in terms of volleyball. Like you really have to hear what they're telling you because realistically, at a USC, for example, yes, my daughter's 5'11". She's not 6'2" or 6'3". She could definitely play back row and hit out of the back row. They're not going to pick her for the front row. And so there's just things that as parents we have to come to realization that yeah, I think my son or daughter is great, but realistically, can they do this position? Not at that level necessarily.
How did it go over when you made that switch from, okay, he might not be a slot receiver to he might be a running back? Because that had to be a mind shift for everybody. You planning out what camps to go to, what schools were going to be interested, and also for him, like,
Yeah,
transitioning, especially at the college level, is not super easy. You're learning,
it's
he went
not.
from learning
Yeah,
routes to learning where to go and what holes to hit from the backfield. So
yeah.
how did that look for your family?
I'll tell you a funny story about that. So this was, I would say, let's say December 2019. He had about 15 offers, and they were smaller schools. James Madison was on the list. Gosh, what else? Army was there. Kent University. Most of them were like Division 1, but no Power 5 schools, right? When Coach Higgins at Wake Forest, the slot coach, receiver coach, pretty much pulled in his last guy just, was very disappointed, right? About a week later, Coach Hunter, who was the running back coach at Wake, was like, "Hey, is Justice still available? Like, what's up with Justice?" Right? So then he reached out to Justice and said, "Hey, how would you feel about coming to Wake and being an athlete? Right? We don't know where we're going to put you, but I'm thinking running back, that sort of thing." And Justice was very excited about it. And as you guys know, when that happened, like it's weird when Wake offered him, all of a sudden Boston College came, University of Tennessee came, and we are like, he's in his senior year, and all of a sudden all these schools are coming. And I told Justice, well, he wanted to go to Wake anyway after that, but I said, don't even entertain these other schools because if they really wanted you, they would have shown interest, early on. But at any rate, Coach Hunter reached out to him. He was excited. He knew in his heart of hearts that he had to like learn a completely new position. So, but he was all for it. And I know my son, like he's definitely going to give it his all. Like he's always been the underdog, whether it's basketball or football. He was the smallest guy and, competing with other guys at the point guard position and having to fight with, so other families who were in, connection more with coaches, things like that. So he's always had to sort of earn his spot, right? So he was used to it. And then when COVID hit, he was having not interviews, excuse me, he was having meetings with Coach Hunter and the other running backs who were currently there, as well as, another one or two that were coming in just like Justice. And he was all in, like he was all in. I remember him sharing with me that Coach Hunter had asked in one of their Zoom meetings, he's like, Justice Ellison just started. How come he's more advanced than some of you guys who've been here? And I already know my son is like, once he got that playbook, he was all in. So that process, while it was stressful, I think it worked out better in the end because like he didn't have a like had he been a running back from the very beginning, I think he would have had tons of offers, right? Because he was the atypical running back, body style, size, height, everything, right? But because he was playing slot, not many people were looking at him. They didn't take him seriously. So the experience with running back with Coach Hunter was great. I mean, it was once we got that, like it was like we were all in. We were all in.
And now Wake did the slow mesh. They're known for the slow mesh. So how did he?
I'll sound like a bunch of Wake moms right now.
Oh my gosh.
Slow mesh.
Oh my gosh. Listen, don't talk to me about slow mesh. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it was okay. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't understand slow mesh until I got to Wake Forest, and like the first year wasn't, it wasn't anything. I didn't really because he didn't play a lot. I think he played. It was a COVID year one, and then two when Kenneth Walker left, then that's when Justice got his chance to play, right? But she didn't. We didn't know much about the slow mesh at that point. The next year, 2021, that was the year that Wake went 8-0 and like ended up like, was it 12-2 or something? I can't remember the split. Went to the ACC championship and blah, blah. That's when the slow mesh became like, whoa, what is this, right? But it was working, right? It was working that year. I think once other teams started noticing that and picking up on it, it didn't work as well, right? 2021, I think we got away with it pretty a lot. But after that, it just to me it didn't work, and it's not really good for a running back when you're 200 plus pound lineman or defensive end coming at you and you're kind of tippy toeing and you're like, okay, give me the ball so I can go. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And honestly, a lot of the coaches in the NFL, when they were talking to Justice in like 10th, 11th, 12th grade, 10th, 11th grade, excuse me, I'm sorry, sophomore, junior year, I'm thinking high school, sophomore, junior year, all of them said, you've got to get to a pro style offense. You cannot, as a running back, you can't be in that type of offense because it's not going to give you the experience that you need assuming you want to get to that next level, right? You got to get out of that system. So I
And
didn't
that
like
helped
it.
lead you guys to transfer to Indiana that was looking for that pro style offense?
Yes, absolutely. I think his fourth year, which was 2023, he had considered leaving. He was, Justice is very much a mentor as well as a student athlete, right? And one of the running backs who was at Wake was sort of chippy toeing around, maybe leaving, and Justice felt like he owed him to stay, and owed himself and all this other stuff. So he decided to stay another year just to kind of be there for that guy, and committed. He was very loyal to Wake Forest, but I think after that fourth year at Wake. He injured his ankle in like the Georgia Tech game, which like the fourth game of the season. And he was in and out. He played, but he really couldn't like there were games he couldn't run the ball because he couldn't just put so much pressure on his ankle. He played 2023 pretty much injured, like 8 of the 12 games. So yeah, so after that, we all had a talk as a family. He said, I'm really looking at venturing outside of Wake Forest because I want to get to the NFL and so on and so forth. And we were like, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. So that's what led him to start his portal process, going into the portal.
What was that like?
Originally
Without
I
giving
was
up too
very,
many secrets.
yeah, I wasn't, we weren't really nervous so much as just how many people are going to be in the portal, right? You asked all these questions. You say, how many people are going to be in the portal? Some of what we've done with our children with the spreadsheet, right? Who's where, what coaches are interested in you. There were coaches that would come to Wake Forest, during that process to see them and say, hey, I want you, this is what I want you for, yada, yada, yada. It was stressful, but we were happy when we got 5 schools just like that. And when we started doing research on who was there, who was leaving, we felt good. We were like, okay, this is not as bad as we thought. You know what I mean? It wasn't. I know that there's some kids who go in the portal and never come out. I think in Justin's case, he knew that he was going to be somewhere else, right? However, I don't know that many parents know this. I learned this part of the process, which was very scary to me. Being a fourth year student, when you start looking at schools, the education piece is very important because a lot of times you don't have the credits. I'm sorry, you have the credits, but when a school is looking at your transcript, Justice was an AB student. They didn't care. They only going to take with so many credits and then in order to get on that field the very next year, you got to take 24 hours of classes, right? And so there was USC, there was Boston College, there was Minnesota, there was, of course, Indiana. I think there were one or two other schools, and pretty much half of them were like, yeah, you need to take 32 hours, as an example. Very excessive, right? The other half were like, hey, you need to take 18 hours. We were trying to looking at, okay, what's doable? What do you like? What is the coaching staff like? Who's there? What's the credit situation looking like? Like, we had to consider all of that. And I think that sometimes kids and parents don't realize that credits do matter. Like you could be their number one guy. And it's like you go through the process. It's like, well, you can't play till next year because we were only able to take 82 credits. And some of these players are almost done. So Justice he would have, had he stayed at Wake, he would have graduated in May of 2024. But by transferring, he didn't finish until December 2024. He was lucky with that. Some people don't even get on the field, and it's a lot of work that spring semester and summertime where you got to like take extra hours just to be able to play in the next football season.
And now to go from a private school to how is there any change in that going from Wake to?
You know what's interesting? So I think that academically, Wake Forest is a very strong school, right? But the difference is going to an Indiana, it's a very strong academic school, and it's so many students. You don't really have the help and support that you had at Wake Forest, right? So while Wake might be tougher academically, right? As an example, Indiana is like you're in a class with 50 people and you're just a number, right? You're just a number. Whereas at Wake Forest, it's like 20 people in the
15.
classroom, and the teachers love you, and like, you know what I mean? So that it's not just a matter of like the coursework, it's what's the support system, what do the tutors to help you with, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot, and people might think I'm going to go to Harvard or I'm going to go here, but if you don't have that support system at a school, I think Justice struggled a little bit with Indiana because he just was kind of like, what do I do? Like, okay, all right, I got to do this on my own. I don't have the same support system that Wake Forest offered. Wake Forest was on you 24/7, right?
Right.
Indiana's more like, you got class, you got assignments, figure it out. So they kind of let you figure it out on your own.
Now,
I
when
was gonna say that's just really important for other moms to know the difference between the demands of a private, demands of a public. You go in as a true freshman to a general public school, a state school, you could be sitting in class with 250 people in freshman biology, which may not fit the learning style of your child, and you're automatically setting them up to struggle when in their first year away from home. Where if you go private, your biggest class is probably ever going to be like 30, 35. And
That's
that's
right.
big on,
That's right.
where my son went, same size ACC school as you guys, private, very small classes.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because it can be definitely moving from the high school level can be a shock when you go into
Ab-
those large classes and less
Absolutely.
people.
I think just as when he went to Wake, he told me that there were some guys that he had met through that process of recruiting that hadn't written an essay before, right? And so thankfully, from where he came from, he was writing essays all the time, right? So he was used to it. But the support system that Wake Forest provided academically definitely was like hands, like it was definitely well above and beyond a lot of the schools that I from friends and parents I know who've gone to other schools who are much bigger, much larger, and so I think, well, I'm glad he was older so it was a little bit better of a transition. But had he gone to Indiana without that support system, sort of Wake Forest was like Flint Hill 2.0, right? It's like private school, very small class sizes. You have the support system. Indiana is more like, whoa, 25,000 students, so many in the classroom. Teachers are like trying to keep up with all the students, and it's like you're just a number. So
Yeah, it's crazy. What were you going to say, Jasmine? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
no, I was just going to say when you were deciding on Wake and on Indiana, I know you might say like the advice to somebody might be that to actually look at the school and not just chase the culture of the football program or the
right.
volleyball program.
Absolutely, absolutely. I had these conversations with friends of mine whose children played basketball at, Power Five schools, Big Ten, SEC. And one of the things that is like somewhat of the largest message is where does your child fit in, right? I don't necessarily want my son to go to Georgia just because it's an SEC school and like they come with a nice price tag in terms of, notoriety, exposure, SEC and all that. Like, does that work with Justice and his personality, right? It may or may not. Who knows? But I think a lot of families, kids, players, whatever, they tend to look at, not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot. I think some families tend to do this. They tend to look at, hey, if I can just be on this team who's going to get nationalized televised games, even if I'm on the bench, I'm on the team. And like, to me, it's like, where's your son going to get an opportunity? Where's he going to learn, to be a great student athlete? How is he going to develop? Like, there's so many pieces that you have to consider for your child when it comes to picking a school. I remember when we were doing basketball in one of the camps we went to, they had a session for the parents, and one guy made a great comment. He said, I knew a kid who went to a school in, I don't know, Wisconsin somewhere, to play basketball. And one of the things was that there were no barbers there to cut his hair. Like something as simple as, I need to get my hair cut. There's nobody there to cut your hair. right? So when you're considering schools, you got to look at everything down to who's going to cut my hair, that sort of thing, right? And we did our due diligence when it came to the schools. I absolutely love James Madison. It's funny that Justin ended up playing for those same coaches. James Madison was 2 hours from home. It was a great school. It was not Power Five at the time, or excuse me, FBS. It was FCS
Yeah.
at the time. But I loved it. Like, I just was like, my son is going to play. He's going to get a great education. He's 2 hours from home. A lot of my friends went to JMU. Like, it was everything for me personally. But I wasn't going to be the one who was playing football, right? So it was on our list as at the top, but it wasn't necessarily the school that Justice wanted to. So even having all those great things on your list as a family, the player can say, you know what, this one thing over here with this school, I want to go there. But I do think Justice took our advice and didn't want to just somewhat chase a name for sake of chasing a name. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to a 40-year decision, like,
Mhm.
because at
Mhm.
some point football's over. So, or,
Yes.
That's
or
right.
any sport.
That's right.
Yeah, all
That's
sports
right.
end at some point, and you have to become a functioning adult. And finding the right place for college is extremely important. I don't understand a lot of the jumping around that we're seeing right now, where
Yeah.
players and all across sports are playing at different places each year. I don't
Mhm.
understand how they're going to get their degree, which ultimately should be the goal. I understand chasing
I agree.
notoriety. I understand chasing NIL. I understand chasing championships and winning and developing. Don't get me wrong, get all that. But in the end, you have to have a degree or you have to have an
Absolutely.
education to move on, and so
Yes.
I think that's where we're seeing a lot of change. I'm really glad you mentioned the credits because I'm a former school teacher, just stopped teaching in the summer, and people don't understand you can only transfer so many credits. And
Right.
when you're later in
Right.
those years, you're that junior, they're that senior, and he was a rising senior, right? So he was
Yeah.
walking across that stage really soon, getting
Mhm.
that degree. And when you go to another school and you realize that some of those classes aren't going to count, you're basically leaving them behind because the new school wants to give you their degree with their name on it, and they
That's
want you
right.
to take an X number of credits, and that may now take you longer to finish.
That's
And I'm
right.
sure he had to bust his tail spring semester into both of the summer semesters to be able to get to where he needed
Yeah.
to let Indiana get him on the field. And I think that's just a huge thing for other parents to learn and understand. You cannot jump around and expect to get a degree. Maybe everybody
That's
doesn't
right.
want to get a degree. Maybe I'm making a bad assumption there, but I wanted my kid to get a degree.
Yeah. Uh, 2 points with that. I think it's interesting that one of the first, I guess, speeches, if you will, that I heard from Coach Clausen with Wake Forest was that of the Division One Power Five schools with high academic standards, there was Wake Forest, Duke, Vanderbilt, Northwestern. There's those five. Did I say Stanford?
You did.
Okay, so with that in mind, one of the schools I was interested in justice was Stanford. Interestingly enough, even after understanding that those five schools were Division One, Power Five, high academic requirements, so on and so forth, Stanford was like, "Yeah, you need to take 32 credit hours in order to get on the field here." Coming from a Wake Forest, so yeah, they may be those top five schools, right? Academically, Stanford didn't. They were just like, "Yeah, no, we need you to have our classes and
Yeah, because they're not
courses."
just going to hand him a Stanford education
That's
without
right.
knowing that he truly was representing what a Stanford education is.
Right. That's
That's
right.
interesting. I've not heard that from any other parent. That's really, really good
Yeah.
information.
I'm surprised, Jasmine, you don't remember that? Do you remember that conversation? I remember that speech. I've heard it two or three times from Coach Clausen about the standards of Power Five, Division One, high academics, and it was Duke, I named the schools
Right.
already. So yeah. And Wake Forest, of course. Yeah. I did want to touch on your comment, Heather, about the transfer portal a little bit and how we're seeing so much movement. So I do agree with you, but I think there's a piece that a lot of people who aren't sort of in the background know. I've heard several stories and won't say names of who, what, when, where, how, but I've heard several stories of like sometimes coaches ask kids to leave, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is sometimes they say, we'll take you, but you have to change your position. So I'm not suggesting that that's 50% of the time or 80% of the time. I don't know the percentages, but I do know that there's more than just a kid is chasing money, right?
Well, yeah, yeah.
It may be a lot of that, but there's definitely a lot of times where athletes are asked to explore the options because we've got some guys coming in. So I think that a lot of fans don't get that, right? I think as parents, we get that of student athletes, we get it, but fans just automatically go to the negative piece of it. It's like, oh, they're just leaving for money. Well, no, they're not actually in some cases. So
Well, you know, before NIL, it was bad business to ask a kid or to be honest with a kid and say, "Hey, you might want to explore other options." It was bad business, right? You didn't want
right,
those kids to leave. And now, I mean, we're seeing it every time there's a coaching change. That coach is coming in and they're rebuilding the entire roster.
that's right.
I've seen it with a good friend's son who was playing went JUCO baseball, then moved up to, Division One baseball, had a great year, loved it. Going into his senior year, they changed the coach, and the coach literally cut everybody on the team but 3 people. Started
Wow.
over a new thing. So all of these young men, and baseball does not get full scholarships, they're all partial. They're multiple seniors heading into their final season, had to go find new homes, deal with what you were just speaking about with the whole credit situation. Do we extend our college career and stay in school just to go play baseball here because now I need XYZ credits? So like you're right. You're 100% right. That everybody is not chasing money, and we are seeing that a lot more. I thought it was really bad business, and when we started seeing it, but now it's every day. We're going to see it
Yeah,
here real soon this summer after spring sports are over. We're
right.
going to see kids enter the portal because they understand that they're going to need to go find a new home if they want to
That's
play or
right.
if they want to just anything. They might get cut.
That's right.
We don't like to use that word in the NCAA, but it is happening. You're 1,000% correct on that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not good.
yeah. Not at all.
No, so the experience in Indiana. So Justice went to Indiana. He did extremely well. Tell us a little bit about that. And I know he was pretty successful but to the point of like handling social media, handling wins and losses, and how he handled all of that, and how you as a mom helped him along with how people's reactions toward him.
So, yeah, Indiana was great. I'm going to start off by saying that it was such a great experience for us as a family. It was great for Justice. As you know, those coaches, or maybe you don't know, those coaches from Indiana all came from James Madison, who had already recruited him before when he was in high school. So it was a no-brainer to me. But obviously, this is Justice's decision. We went on our visit, had a great experience there. Coach Signetti sat with us at our table at dinner time, our family as well as the Williams family with Keyshawn Williams, who also went to Indiana with Justice, who also played at Wake with Justice. Excuse me. So we sat at the table, had a great conversation with Coach Signetti, and you know we were all in, right? So when Justice arrived, it was a little bit of a challenge at first because he was a little bit concerned about them bringing in a lot of James Madison players, and I don't think that was just Justice was alone in that. I think sometimes when you bring a coaching staff from one school and they bring some of those some players with them, any player that comes who's not from that school is going to have concerns, right? So, but like usual, he went to I got to fight for position mode. He always does that, right? So he did really well. They did well in the spring, and then about midsummer, he called us and said, "Hey, mom, they chose me to go to Big Ten Media Day," and I'm like, "What?" So there's three guys who get to go to the media day for each college, right, every year. So we were so excited about that. We were like, "Wow, like that's an honor because they're picking an athlete who is articulate, who speaks well, great in front of the camera with the microphone, good, DNA, all that great stuff. Like you really want somebody who's going to represent your school in a very positive light." So we were excited about that. Now, when the season started, it was a little bit, slow here and there with Justice in terms of how he was feeling a little bit like some of the guys were in front of him and blah 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 blah. But he worked as he always does, and it was just no, we didn't feel there was anything that was being mishandled, if that makes sense. I think we were just like, hey, go out there, have fun, do you, have a great time, enjoy it. It's your last year in college. Do what you need to do to get on the field. And pretty much that was it. Prior to the first game, he told us he was made a captain. And I'm thinking, really? You're going to be a captain? So all these very positive things were happening. And as a parent, you sometimes question things like, what about this? And what about that? And we had to pull ourselves back and say, okay, calm down. This is going to be a great experience. And it was. He played. He split time with, two other running backs. He was a captain. He was the representative on Big Ten Media Day. Indiana was getting a little bit of notoriety early on. Like it started to sort of turn a little bit. So the experience altogether was it was just amazing to us. I mean, I laughed because Keyshawn Williams' mom, we're really good friends. She would say, "Justice is Mr. Indiana, isn't he?" And I'd say, "Stop it, stop it." Like because everywhere we went, we see him on a billboard, we see him here, we see him there, and so it was very positive. And I think I felt like The Indiana Terrence was just as sort of getting paid as just due. Like he's put in all the years. You deserve this year to have this great of a year. Congratulations. So
I love that.
it was a great feeling. Um, to the point where I think he even said, I might not play after this. But, it was in his mind all season. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, so Indiana was like, I mean, it was cream of the crop for us. Wake Forest was a great university. Justice learned a lot. He even talks about how there are things that he learned that he might not have learned at Indiana at this stage of his life. He said, I'm so thankful for what I got at Wake Forest. But Indiana really was like the icing on the cake for him and for our family.
And now, were there additional stresses though, like when they won, if they didn't win,
Oh,
anything like
that's
that?
right.
How did he carry that, and how did you help
Yeah,
him with that?
so I think, they went undefeated, I don't know, 8 or 9 games. I can't remember, 8 or 9 games or so, and there were times when, Doug might not have had a great game early on, but as a running back room, they all kinda, like, cheered each other on and, like, helped each other sort of fight through some of those challenges, and there were moments when I would say, "Justice, look, this is your last year in college. We're not gonna go through the same thing we went through at Wake Forest," meaning having therapy sessions after games, discussing, why something happened, why something didn't happen, what the coach might have said. Like we did that a lot in 4 years, and we were just exhausted from it. We just said, you know what, go out there, have a good time. I think he handled it well once he told himself, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to enjoy my last year in college football. Before that, he was very stressed out, very much like, I got to play, I got to do this, I got to do, he was so focused on what he needed to do to get to the NFL that once he said, you know what, I'm just going to go out there and do what I know how to do and have fun doing it, right? I think that when the losses came, so we had a close game against Michigan. We did win. We lost to Ohio State very badly. Like it was a matter of, talking to the coaches, talking to each other as a team, just kind of rallying around each other and really saying, okay, don't point fingers, don't point blame. This play you could have done that. That play you could like they didn't do that at all. Like we all came together and said, what can we do better? And I remember him telling me that Coach Sinetti said, you know what? We're just not going to do that anymore, right? And kind of made fun of the situation.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. And that was after the Ohio State game. I think it was the silent count. He was like, "We're not doing that silent count anymore," because it was. I have not been in a stadium in 4 or 5 years where I couldn't hear. I was like, "How in the world can they hear anything?" So I think that was smart of them to kind of say, "Well, no more silent count." Point is that as a team, they rallied around each other and handled that well. And just tune out the negativity with social media, tune out the negativity with, so many like the fans and even your family members sometimes, don't have the best things to say to you after games, right? I used to have to tell the family, I would say, leave him alone, let him kind of process whatever he needs to process. And then when he's ready, Justice will call me the very next day and say, Mom, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? When he's had time to step back and think about it. I don't think that I used to use this analogy and say, imagine you're looking in corporate America, you're giving a presentation, or you're a teacher, you're giving a presentation, and three people are shouting at you as you're presenting, right? And you're really trying to focus on what you're supposed to do in the field, but you have someone yelling at you as you're giving a presentation. I can't imagine what these athletes deal with. Football is a very difficult sport. Like it is. Like it's intense. And I've seen videos of NFL players saying they had to study one player for one game and how much time they put into that. I have a lot of respect for athletes in general, but I really have respect for football players because learning plays, learning other teams, learning specific players, like it's a lot. And you have to give them grace when dealing with as a fan when you're dealing with these kids. Because I always say half of you guys couldn't do half of what these kids are doing, you know? So I think they handled the stress well of the season when things weren't looking as pretty as it was the first 6 or 7, 8, 9 games. And they came together. So
Yeah, they had an incredible season. It was really a good year for Indiana. It was fun. They were the kind of the black sheep of the top 20 there for a while, and everybody was questioning,
yeah,
did they belong? Did they not belong? Well, yeah, they belong. They were winning. They were undefeated for a really long time. They had a great season. It
had
was
a great
fun.
season. And to me,
Yeah.
I always say it's to me very sort of disconcerting when, you say we played Nebraska, we were 6-0, they were 5-1. So you're telling me that 8 or 9 other schools within the Big Ten just are terrible. Like, have some respect for these teams,
Amen.
these coaching staff, the players, the families. Like these people put so much into the sport for your entertainment that you're just disregarding. So you just want to watch Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama play? Great. Have fun with that, right? Like, there's other great schools, that play at this level. So I have a lot of respect for just the game itself. So I've always been a parent of an athlete. So for me, it's a little bit different, but I just don't get I honestly didn't understand so much hatred towards Indiana. It's like, they're an underdog. Why don't you support them?
I
Right?
agree.
They don't have
Agree.
five stars in one position. Yeah, they don't have that. Guess what? But they earned it, right? They earned it. They're there, and guess what? They beat everybody on their schedule except Ohio State and Notre Dame. So hey,
And what did Ohio State and Notre Dame end up doing this year?
that's right.
Playing for a
That's
national
right.
championship
Play
against
for
each
national
other.
championship. Yeah, like
So
it's. I always say I can't play everybody, right? I can only play what's on my schedule. I can't hypothetically play Alabama. I can't hypothetically play Georgia. Like, I gotta play who's on my schedule. And if you can't respect the schedule, then why do you even watch football? Why
right.
even watch the sport?
Yep.
Then
I
just
agree with
sit
you.
back and
It was
let
a
us
great
just
year.
let. Yeah, it's a great year, great year. So
Did you find that it was any let's do that. Did you find any sort of common ground between your daughter's volleyball recruitment and his football recruitment? Were there any commonalities there, or was it two different worlds?
that's a great question. So there's layers, right? I think with volleyball, what I learned early on is that college coaches come to your tournament. You're going to see a college coach every tournament. Whereas in the high school recruiting process, you might see a coach at a Nike League camp, but you may not see any, right? But every tournament my daughter went to, I would see the head coach of Minnesota, the head coach of Penn State, the head coach, like all the volleyball great schools, their coaches were there watching players every single um, tournament we had. In regards to the process with picking a school, I think it was similar. Like I mentioned, the spreadsheet and everything. I think that what was more difficult for Justice was that he was not being seen by the school that he wanted. Jasmine was at least being seen by the school she wanted. It's just that she was sort of toying with the idea of going to like an Ivy League, right? So we would visit Ivy Leagues, right? So she wasn't trying to, well, she did mention USC at one point when she was 15, but as she got older, she realized she wanted to do like, we went to Cornell twice, we went to Columbia, we went to, um, which is not an Ivy League, went to Xavier, went to so many schools up and down the East Coast. So in her regard, she was at least getting seen by the school she wanted to be, to recruit her. With Justice, I think we were like at Duke University and trying to have Duke look at us, like look at him, right? So it was a little bit different in that he was like trying to get them to give him attention, where she had the attention of where she wanted to go to school. So that was difficult to navigate because you're not only navigating just the fact of things, but now we're dealing with emotions and feeling a certain way about it. Do they like my child? Is my child happy? Is he sad today? Like it's emotionally draining the entire process. So, but I think in her regard, she was at least getting school interested in her that she wanted to attend.
What do you believe was the secret sauce to the success for each of them?
Wow, gosh. Okay. So because they were two very different players, student athletes, Jasmine, honestly, my daughter wasn't a like go getter. She wasn't. I would kind of have to make her train. We gotta go to training. You gotta go to training. You gotta go to training. Okay, mom, I'll go to training. Right? Justice was like meeting us at the training center. Like he really wanted to train. So this to me, one part of the secret sauce is you gotta know your kid. Like you gotta know what what drives them. Justice didn't need to be pushed. He wanted to do it. Jasmine was more like, okay, I gotta push her a little bit, nudge her a little bit. Whereas Justice, I mean, I remember going with him to the sandbox. He would run hills outside of our house like any given day. We think sometimes as parents, because our child who's talented, they may not want it as badly, right? So Justice was talented, but he also wanted it. And so sometimes, the secret sauce is what does our kid want to do? Is she or she a go getter? Great. If not, then what can we do to push them to drive them to like, if they say I really want to do it, but I want to do these things, okay, well what can push that person to really want to put the extra time in? Because I don't care how talented you are, hard work, I think of the iceberg. Hard work underneath is really what's going to get you to that next level at the college level, right? Not even thinking professional. just the college level. Like you have to put in that time. And a lot of kids think because they're fast or because they're strong, they're just going to be good, or because they're good in high school, right? You can't, it's not just that simple. When you get to college, it starts from zero. Everybody starts from zero. I don't care if you're a 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. I've seen some 5-stars in other schools lose their spot to a 3-star because the 3-star worked harder, right? If you look at the NFL, a lot of those current players were probably 5th, 6th, 7th round people because they work hard to get there, right? They had to do those extra things.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of free agents that become Pro Bowlers in the NFL, and it's because they're motivated by not getting drafted and they work their tails off and
that's
they end up
right.
having these long careers, you know?
So, are we ready for our last question?
Yeah, let's do
Sure.
it.
So, Sheree, what are the 3 clear bag must haves or 3 things that you bring to every game?
Oh gosh. Okay. I have to think about my clear bag that I took to Wake and Indiana. Let me think of what I was had in that bag.
Probably different things because Indiana's
Different,
way colder.
yeah, different things. Okay, let's do a two-part of that. When it's cold, I had my hand warmers. I had my um lip gloss because it's the air is cold and it gets dry and everything. And I had my pom poms. I had my red and white pom poms. Just a regular day, hey, it's warm outside or whatever. Let me think about that bag. I always had a the white towel, the white towels that we would do the towels. I always had that. That was at every game, and I'm envisioning game tickets. When we used to have game tickets, I would keep the game tickets in my bag the entire season. The
Really?
entire season. Every time we get a ticket. So we in recent years we switched over to online stuff, right? So electronic. But at Wake Forest, I have every ticket from every game for the last 3 or 4. Well, 'cause I think in 2023 we switched to online, right, Jasmine?
Yeah, it was 2023.
Yeah, so 2020 when they allowed us to come back, 2021 and 2022, I had the hard paper tickets in my bag, and I would keep them together, wrapped up in like in a rubber band or something. And then the away games too, I would keep those tickets. So the game tickets were always in my bag, the pom poms, the lip gloss, of course my phone. But yeah, I think the game tickets was the thing that I had to have at every game. Had to have it every
I
game.
still have all mine too.
Yeah, and I'm
Yes,
very
I do.
very superstitious when it comes to the games. I would literally wear Justice's jersey, the same earrings every game, not changing it. I'm sorry, and the same leggings. I wore the jersey, the leggings, and the same earrings every single game. I did it at Wake Forest, and I turned around and did it at Indiana, the very same game. So I will tell you something funny. The one time I switched my earrings at Wake Forest, we lost badly. We did. I don't even know why. You know what I think I told myself? I said, I'm gonna stop with this superstitious stuff. Just wear different earrings. Wore different earrings and we lost. And it was bad. I said never again. Never again. So I pretty much wear the same outfit every day.
You and I are very, very similar. It's kind of creepy to me. I am so superstitious. If we lost, I never wore that t-shirt again, or that sweatshirt, or that jacket, or what. It became tainted and it did not get worn into a stadium again. My son would always say to me, Mom, that t-shirt really affected the way I played today. And I was like, I know. Like, I know.
Yes,
So
yes.
I know it was stupid, but yeah, it was the same
No,
way.
I'm telling it, the jersey and the earrings and the leggings was my staple uniform. I couldn't get away from it. I think I cried when I had red earrings this year and they broke probably was it before the Ohio State game, which is probably why we lost. Now I think about it.
We have put this on the Indiana message boards.
Yes.
Why they lost.
Jasmine Ellison's mom's earrings broke. I'm telling you, I wore them every game.
Really
Every
respect
game.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Every
awesome.
game.